trying to give you a largely overview of the fundraising landscape here. So in India, funding for social initiatives come from a variety of channels, whether it's philanthropy, CSR, crowdfunding, and impact investing. And each of these sources bring some unique opportunity to create impact. Just to give an example, crowdfunding platforms like Milap and Keto have made it possible for individuals to support causes and basically democratizing access to funds, right? To just give you also some numbers, domestic philanthropy has showcased some impressive growth with estimated 1.1 lakh crore annually in FY 2023-24. Second, one of the other things that influences or shapes the Indian fundraising landscape is the government regulation and mandates. The Companies Act, Section 135, mandates companies to meet specific financial thresholds to, required to spend 2% of their CSR profit, right? And India is one of the first country to legally require to do that. It started back in 2014. Impact-driven giving. Another growing trend is the demand for outcome-oriented giving. Donors are increasingly focusing on measurable and tangible impacts in areas across education, healthcare, and climate action. We believe that this is also leading to more accountability and long-term results. And largely, what we already touched upon earlier on the digital fundraising platforms, the growth of platforms like Give India have made fundraising more transparent and accessible, and it is allowing a large pool of individuals or donor base to invest in the causes they believe in. So yeah, so this is a brief around the fundraising landscape in India. Yeah, so these are some of the key players in the social impact space, in the fundraising space largely. I just urge you to have a look. There's the education space, the CSR contributors. Sorry, there's something. Okay. Yeah. That's the foundation. I'm sorry, there's some mistake over here. The education, it says the key players. So anyways, those are the foundations, CSR contributors, international agencies, impact investment funds, various crowdfunding platforms, grassroots organizations, and high net individuals and ultra high net worth individuals, right?
So these are some of the figures that we have curated across different sources. As you can see here, if you read through the slide, that a lot of the work is being done in the education space and in the health space. And there's also an uptake in the climate space. And we are seeing similar trends even within our line of work at Arthan by the virtue of the kind of roles that we've been able to successfully hire for. So for instance, within this financial year from 2024 to till date, of all the placements that we have done so far, 19% of them are into fundraising, partnerships, donor management role, which also make up for the massive chunk of the placements that we have done so far, followed by programmatic roles and research roles. Of these fundraising roles that we have successfully hired for, 27% of them are in the education space, which is aligned with the market trend that we are seeing. Another trend that we are seeing is that 23% of the placements that we did were with the organizations that are working towards reduced inequity. So I think these are some great thematic areas for you to explore when you are exploring opportunities for yourself.
Critical role of women leaders in fundraising for social impact. So some of the stats that shows is, 54% of family philanthropies in India are led by women and 70% with active female representation, highlighting the growing role of women in leadership positions within philanthropy in India. So this isn't just about, women being present in these spaces, but it emphasizes that women are shaping the pathways or value strategies or playing a very big role in decision-making processes in these organizations, which leads to more inclusive and equitable philanthropic efforts. Impact on fundraising. So women philanthropists are making a measurable impact by, prioritizing specific causes, which could be in the areas of gender equity, health, education, and social justice, right? Women fundraisers or philanthropists are more likely to align naturally with their efforts with donor priorities, which helps in channeling these resources towards initiatives that are more meaningful and inclusive. So how I look at it overall is that women leaders are transforming philanthropy in two ways. And this is just, literally just touching upon the initial parts of it. As donors prioritizing specific causes like gender equity, health, education, and social justice. And as leaders in fundraising, women are aligning with donor priorities and driving resources towards the more impactful and inclusive initiatives, right? So overall, not just shaping the present, but inspiring the future by being aspirational role models. So yeah, that's the overall way that we see that why the role of women are so critical in this space. While we all know that fundraising is a dynamic and rewarding career, many of the skill sets that, as mid-career professionals, you guys must have already honed, whether it's in communications, leadership, relationship building, or strategy. We've tried to sort of divide the overall fundraising opportunities into these 4 quadrants. The first quadrant being marketing and communication. So if you are someone who's worked in or has experience in branding, communications, or digital marketing, you'll find yourself aligning with this quadrant, whether it's in roles like digital marketing lead, fundraising communications manager, or maybe even director of donor communications or something on those lines, right? Largely, this quadrant or space is about creating campaigns, managing digital fundraising strategies, and building online communities to drive donations and awareness, right? So that's one quadrant. The second one is community engagement, right? So building a community to champion your charity, right? So if you're someone who is, have a background with or excel at building relationships or leading teams, this space will allow you to foster communities and create impactful events, lead volunteers, create partnership with corporate organizations. Effectively, this role is a combination of strategic planning with people-focused collaboration. Some of the roles that you can expect here again is corporate partnerships manager, maybe director of community fundraising, community outreach coordinator. The third one, the third quadrant, which is the fundraising asks, right? So again, here, if you're someone who's skilled with negotiating, storytelling, or building high-value relationships, you'll find yourself aligning with this quadrant. This particular quadrant is perfect for leveraging your interpersonal and persuasive communication skills. You can expect to come across roles like grant acquisition manager, senior manager for philanthropic partnerships, head of donor relations, and pretty much a mix of all of these roles lead you to leadership roles, right? Which is a broader spectrum from department head to director. So that's just in a nutshell that we wanted to give you the kind of quadrants or the overall roles that you can expect in the fundraising space.
One thing you must have noticed across these roles and the kind of requirements that they have is that the decision makers, while they're looking at people with prior fundraising experience or exposure to the development sector, they're also open to folks with a strong business development sales background. The focus is also a lot more on the soft skills. Now, talking about the business development sales background, right? This could be B2B or B2C. If you can present evidence of having generated revenue through sales pitch, closing deals, and having achieved your targets year on year and have numbers to show for it, you're good. You'll be considered because it reflects that you possess the convincing skills needed to onboard a funder, right? Especially if you have experience selling a service or an idea, not necessarily a tangible product. You can potentially thrive within a fundraising role, which means that you're also able to understand your target audience and more specifically areas of impact that your funder is passionate about. You're able to catch their attention and are able to align your organization's objectives with the funder's interests. Hence, the focus is a lot more on the soft skills. So your funders, especially the ones who are, who can give you major gifts, they are driven by narratives. You'll need to have excellent communication skills, be it verbal or written, because you'll also be writing a lot of proposals. You are great at nurturing relationships, you're great at networking, and you're creative and can think out of the box. Because you will be at some point also expected to manage fundraising targets and budgets, it's also important to possess some financial acumen. Along with this, if you're great with processes, project management, data reporting, you'll be great. In terms of transferability, folks who are into sales and BD, marketing and communications, public relations, researchers, in fact, they also possess most of the soft skills and hard skills needed to thrive in this role. As long as you're able to position yourself as someone who is aligned with the mission of your target organization and have evidence to show the kind of impact that you can create, you can be considered for the role. It so happens that a lot of the organizations today are also open to experimenting, and they are coaching people on the job. Now, this may be more relevant for the freshers, but organizations are looking at onboarding business graduates, right? They join the BD team and they are given certain sales targets to achieve, and soon their role evolves into fundraising. Another way of entering into the fundraising space is by finding opportunities to work very closely with the founders. Now, it could be, founder's office role, wherein you may not be involved in fundraising directly, but you have direct access to the founders and you get to learn from them, and then you can eventually grow into this role. Folks who are looking to transition into the space may have to be a bit creative about how they land opportunities, because at least at the mid-senior level, the expectation is that you are coming in with fundraising space with client or donor acquisition evidence to show for. Another common thread you will find in the senior roles is the network that you bring with yourself. At the junior level, with about 0 to 2 years of experience, even 3 to 4, your major responsibilities are more geared towards supporting function, right? You're supporting in writing grants or doing research. But as you grow into the fundraising space, the expectation is that you've started raising funds and you have numbers to show for it. And further, when you start evolving into leadership roles, the hiring managers will also look at the kind of network that you're bringing in with yourself, which is an indicator of how well you're able to nurture your relationships, which could then be potentially new funders for the organizations that you are targeting. So if you must have heard of this word saying, your network is your net worth. So that would be a great, at least suggestion from my end, to start building on your network, because that is what you will take with yourself wherever you go. To summarize, these are some of the key skill sets that are important for anyone to succeed into this space. For those who are looking out, my suggestion would be to do some reflective work, think about what are the key strengths and back it by evidence. Lastly, and most importantly, I feel always highlight why you care about a certain impact area, because people care about aligned values.
But I would love to though ask you that, if you have any advice that you would give to women professionals aspiring to excel in fundraising. So are there any specific advice that you can share? While you must have already touched upon some of them already. Yeah.
Sure. I think one thing that we see is that women being more assertive is something that's rare. Like we say a lot of stories and we are like usually very like nice and all of that, and we feel like okay. And this is research, right? If we see a JD and if we see that we don't meet all the criteria, we don't even apply, compared to men who will just like if they would meet like few of the criteria would apply. So I guess like the advice is that be more assertive, have more confidence, apply for positions without, even if you don't meet all the criteria. This is the time for like women and other marginalized sections to really come up, step up into the social impact space in different roles. And like in general, women are better. Over the years, I've been able to train myself that, and I even tell my boss that, like if we have raised $1 million, now let's go and raise 2 or like $3 million, right? Like we should always go higher and not care, like not worry so much about the smaller grants, right? So yeah, that's the advice I would have.
Even when you were, introducing yourself, shared about your journey so far, you spoke about some of the challenges in the fundraising space and how it was like to be on the other end of it. What are some of the other challenges do you think exist within this space, and what are some of the solutions that you could think of? Also, I think it resonates with one of the questions that we received, was that some of the challenges could be ideological also, right? What some of the challenges do you think people can often face within this space?
Yeah, definitely. I think especially for women in the fundraising space or like even the financial space, if we were to say in general, I think it's uncommon to see women sort of leading these efforts, right? And then when you're especially engaging with the opposite gender, it's sort of like you have to convince them that you can fundraise and you can raise this much money and you can actually have the organization utilize all of it. So I think the challenge I have faced also is a lot of in meetings with sort of powerful men who are much older to me, who would have questions about my credibility as to why am I in that room, why am I in that important meeting, what credentials do I carry, and sometimes like I have to be prepared that I have to drop the names IIT Harvard sort of to like have more gravitas in the meeting. But like I think it's really up to you how you strategically sort of share about yourself, how many years of work experience you have, the network that you have, and how you convince the other person that what I'm saying actually carries a lot of value and you better listen. So yeah, it's happened to me multiple times, and I guess now I'm used to it. But yeah, it's fun to see how their expression changes when you like sort of talk about all the things that you've done.
One thing that I would like to talk about is how can we set ourselves apart, and how can we widen our breadth of experience, right? So I would like to refer from an article written by a senior leader from Dasra. So now we know of different sources of funding, right? And one source that has the maximum potential to give us like large funds are HNIs through their major gifts. So what the future of philanthropy looks like is that but now we're looking at families going beyond historical funding preferences, and they're now looking at integrating intersectional lens towards different preferences. Now, this focus could be on gender, caste, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and it is also intersectoral focus, or like different across different themes, right? So, such as climate action. So for you to stand out, you will need to start looking beyond the traditional preferences and start looking at the kind of work being done at intersectionality. And I feel that's where us women also stand out, and something that Sneha also earlier pointed out and has been shared by Pallavi as well. Um, for instance, we understand the importance of accessible healthcare for all, especially in the rural areas, right? Now, the issue becomes intersectional when we bring in the gender considerations, right? We have set up clinics, but what about the women who may not even have the money to, buy medicines or the consultation? What if they're not even allowed to step out of their households, right? So that's when we start thinking and ideating for solutions at a deeper level. So now, not only are we talking about folks who are economically marginalized, but we're also talking about folks who are doubly marginalized by the virtue of their gender. Um, Another thing to think about is start embedding a climate lens in your interventions. Funders are now increasingly interested in supporting climate solutions, and incorporating an environmental and climate lens into their existing portfolios to strengthen the narrative for adaptation of community resilience. For instance, we have waste management, water treatment, biodiversity, conservation. These are some of the areas within the climate action that are now getting more attention, right? So there's also a greater acknowledgement from the funders to, respond effectively to the climate crisis. So it is, crucial to support and listen to the grassroots voices and community-based organizations. So start exploring and learning about different thematic areas. Ultimately, the process remains the same, right? Hence, the process orientation being an important skill set here. You will eventually start standing out and you will start resonating with your potential funders. I hope that answers the questions around the skill sets and how we can, further make our experiences um, go at a deeper level and widen our expertise. Yeah. Another question that we had received was, how does a long-term fundraising career look like, and what challenges may arise in sustaining donor relationships? Would love for Pallavi to, respond to this.
Yeah, I think like as you said, network is really important. So maintaining that network is key to having like a long fundraising career, and it's not just about talking about fundraising with these people, it's actually relationship management. So like having regular touch points, meeting for coffee just to talk about life, and then like eventually sort of when you start building your network and you start being in those circles, that's where sort of things happen. Then you get to know, okay, we're actually, you can share, we're doing this, and a lot of these opportunities and big grants actually turn out of coffee chats, right? So always sort of maintain the touch, be very intentional in terms of who are the people who you want to sort of cover in a quarter or something, and like that, I think that is one key valuable insight that I have learned, and I think would be valuable also for people to maintain like a long career.